hand control. One of the things in wrestling is not just being able to tie up with each other, but we're also trying to be doing things to grab each other's hands to be able to get to another step. For example, I may try to grab a hand to get it to a 2-on-1 situation. But it starts out with grabbing the hands or having hand control. There's a couple things that are important when you're hand fighting and trying to establish hand control. One is this. I would prefer not to grab a wrist, because if I grab a wrist, this hand is still free to attack. Whereas if I grab the hand and the fingers, he's not going to be able to attack with that hand. So generally speaking, when I grab hand control, I don't want to have wrist control per se, because he still has an effective use of his hand. I would much rather get his fingers, okay, or get his hand and control his fingers simultaneously, because that takes this hand out of the game. Okay, that's one important point. The second important point when you're fighting for hand control is that a lot of times it's difficult to get hand control on both. Sometimes it's easier to be able to have two hands on one. And if I can keep that hand towards me such that this other hand is farther away, it's very difficult for him to attack initially. I'm not saying that's a position we're going to stay in for long, but I just want to show you how by using two hands against one, that can be an effective way station before you get on to initiate another attack. So when I get hand control, don't grab the wrist to where that hand is still effective. Grab the fingers or grab the hand such that you've got control of the fingers. And the other thing is, if you can grab two hands, and also too, you'll notice I'm using my head. Anytime I'm close to my opponent and my head is making contact, the head is one as opposed to try to keep him at bay. But two, you develop a sensitivity for understanding where he's moving or where he wants to move based upon my head position and how I can feel his body. I can feel him. I develop sensitivity to where he's moving. I can feel that. And that's something you'll develop with experience. That's just a little aside. For now, though, my main goal is to get hand control, and I grab the fingers so I can control his hand more effectively so he cannot use that hand. And the other situation is two hands to one when you can't, because that will give me an opportunity to attack a little better. And two, if I have two hands to one here, and I can keep this hand in this angle, it makes it difficult for him to turn into me. Now if I have his hand here, no problem for him. But if I have his hand here, and I'm coming at this angle, you can see it's difficult. He's at an unfavorable angle to attack. That's not so for me. Okay? Just again, tuck that away. When we actually get to the different attacks, some of this hopefully will begin to make sense to you. The next setup I call an elbow jam. And to sort of prepare you for the notion behind this type of an attack or this type of preparation or setup. Remember when we talked about our stance, keeping our elbows in, we don't want to keep our arms too far out. Okay? One, keep our arms too far out, there's more space for our opponents to come in and grab. And also too, with my elbows in and my arms in pretty much, I can be able to defend my opponent, and I can also attack pretty good. I'm in kind of a posture here where I can initiate my attack. However, there's a point where if my elbows are too far in, I lose the ability to defend. And in particular, my push power is greatest with my elbows slightly out. When I try to defend, when we go over takedown defense in future DVDs, I want to keep my arm down, but my elbow actually stays slightly away from my body. Because if it's jammed in here, I'm more likely to be successfully attacked. So this setup is going to capitalize on that notion, insofar as my goal is simply to get the elbow to make contact with the body. And at that point, there's nothing really to defend against an attack in this direction here towards my body, towards the side that I have the elbow jammed into the body. So, for example, if we're hand fighting in here, if I can step and jam his arm to his body, at that point, it's very difficult for him to defend. As soon as I capture his arm to his body, that gives me an opportunity to attack. Most of the attacks that I would want to do, and again, we'll be going over these more formally in other DVDs, is an attack that's going to pin this arm to the body so that that arm is useless to defend against the attack. But the notion here is simply to be able to jam it against the body. You'll notice that I don't just use arm power. For example, if Colby here was pushing more with his right arm, there's a tendency when you do that for your left arm to want to retract, or at least there's going to be less vigilance on his part in terms of pressure on this arm, because he's focusing on pushing here. So if I can get past that and jam this arm into his body, that sets up a favorable position for an attack. So from here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to step, and I'm using my body. You'll see I'm not just push power with my hands. As I'm lowering my level, I'm pushing his arm in. And what I'm going to do then, I'm going to capture it with my shoulder for now, just as an example. So we're up in here. Here. I'm in this position. I'm going to jam in here, okay, as I'm coming in. And then as this gets pinned, my shoulder slides. Boom. Go around for double would be one example. Once more. A different situation, but with the same concept. If I can push here, okay, I can transfer and attack. So from here, I can push in here. I slide my shoulder down, and I can transfer. I can go. I'm basically doing the same type of an attack, but I'm changing my arm. So I'm going to come in here. I jam here. I get my shoulder down, I transfer, I grab, I can go to like outside single here, I can switch to double, or come to single. Not so worried about how we're going to actually get into those. I'm just trying to get you to understand the notion of being able to pin that elbow to the body will give you a favorable position to attack your opponent. Another point on that I think is helpful is when I do that type of a jam, I don't want to attack him straight in. When I jam, I want to slightly come to the side. So I want to change my angle slightly. I would prefer, if possible, not to come in straight at Colby like this, but as I jam the elbow in, and you'll notice it almost goes slightly across his body. I'm not really trying to jam it way across, but I'm not trying to push it here. I'm trying to push it pretty much against the side of his abdomen here. As I'm pushing it in here, if I can get to a slight angle, that'll improve my probability of initiating a successful attack.